I'm Alyssa.
I'm Hannah.
We're going to talk about imperialism.
Imperialism is the policy by which stronger nations take over weaker nations politically and economically.
I'm going to talk about the causes of imperialism and the causes of the war.
I'm going to talk about America's first steps towards world power and America's troops battle the Spanish.
We're also going to talk about the United States acquires Hawaii and the effects of the war. The reason the rush to grab colonies, the desire for raw materials, the colonies and economics were examples of extracted colonies. The imperial countries extracted or removed raw materials from the colony and shipped them to the home country. For Americans, the problem was not a shortage of materials, but supplies of goods. To expand and protect their interests around the world, imperialist nations built up their military strength. Alfred T. Mahan played a key role in transforming Americans into a navy power. And the influence of a sea power upon history, Mahan asserted that since ancient times, many great nations had owed their greatness to powerful navies. By 1900s, the U.S. had the third largest navy in the world. Imperialists around the world used ideas of racial, national, and cultural superiority to justify imperialism. Social Darwinism. The belief that life consists of competitive struggles in which only the fittest survived. One reason that Americans embraced social Darwinism was that they had long believed that God had granted them the right and responsibility to settle the frontier. And the significance of the frontier in American history. The historian Frederick Jackson Turner noted that frontier had been closed by gradual settlement in the 19th century. Turner's thesis urged oversells expansion as the way to keep the safety valve open and avoid that internal conflict.
In 1853, Commodore Matthew Perry sailed a fleet of American warships to present-day Tokyo Bay, Japan. It had denied the rest of the world access to its ports. Perry won the Japanese emperor's favor by showering him with gifts. Within a year, Perry made a treaty that opened Japan to trade with America. In 1867, the U.S. took possession of the Midway Islands. In 1867, Secretary of State William Seward bought Alaska from Russia for $7.2 million. Journalists said the purchase was... Journalists scoffed at the purchase and referred to Alaska as Seward's Folly and Seward's Icebox. But Seward's purchase doubled the country's size, and Alaska turned out to be rich in timber, oil, and other natural resources. U.S. businessmen saw Latin America as a natural place to expand their trade and investments. James Blaine, Secretary of State, helped them by sponsoring the First International Pan-American Conference in 1889. The conference paved the way for the constitution of the Pan-American Highway System. In 1895, tensions rose between America and Great Britain, claiming that Britain was violating the Monroe District. President Cleveland threatened U.S. intervention. British accepted a growing U.S. sphere of influence in Latin America.
American planters in Hawaii faced two problems. One was a new U.S. tariff law imposed duties on previously duty-free Hawaiian sugar, which made the sugar price go up. The second problem was that in 1891, Kalavada died and his sister, Lukakiliana, was his successor. In 1893, they overthrew the Queen. John Stevens, U.S. Minister, arranged to help the rebels seize power. The new government, led by Sanford B. Dole, asked Benjamin Harrison, the president, to annex Hawaii into the United States. President Harrison signed the Treaty of Annexation, but couldn't get required state approval before Grover Cleveland became president. Cleveland ordered a full investigation, which revealed that the majority of the Hawaiian people didn't approve the treaty. Cleveland wouldn't sign the agreement. American settlement for annexation remained strong. In 1897, William McKinley became president. In 1898, after the outbreak of the Spanish-American War, Congress proclaimed Hawaii as an official U.S. state. By 1897, American entrepreneurs had invested $15 million in sugarcane plantations and other ventures in Cuba, which lay just 90 miles of Florida coast. In 1895, Cuban patriot Jose Marti Martí launched a war for independence from Spain. He herded the rural population into Greek concentration camps, where tens of thousands died from diseases and starvation. Meanwhile, the Cubans and Spanish destroyed American property. Rival newspapers published Joseph Blitzer and William Randolph Hearst heightened the public dislike of the Spanish government. Their publications were the Yellow Press because they were featured a popular comic strip character called the Yellow Kid. President William McKinley warned the Spanish to quickly establish peace, or the U.S. would take whatever steps it should deem necessary to proceed this result. McKinley ordered the battleship to Maine of Havana Harbor to protect American citizens in Cuba. In February 1898, Journal published a private letter written by Enrique de Puy de Lome. Hearst published the letter. The letter fueled American jingoism. Soon after the Journal published the Lome letter, the Maine exploded in Havana Harbor on March 28, 1898. The board concluded that Maine had destroyed the battleship. Most people blamed Spain. In newspaper speeches and songs, patriotic employed their fellow citizens to remember the Maine. On April 11, 1898, McKinley asked Congress for the authority to use force against Spain to end the fighting in Cuba. 8 days later, Congress enacted 4 resolutions that amount to a declaration of the war in Spain. Spain declared war on the United States.
On May 1, 1898, Commodore George Dewey sent vessels into Manila Bay. Dewey watched his ships quickly destroy the Spanish force. Even though 400 Spanish sailors died, no American did. Dewey was proclaimed a hero. Meanwhile, Filipino nationalists, led by Emilio Aguinaldo, were defeating the Spanish army. They were fighting for freedom in Spain. In August, after some 15,000 U.S. soldiers had landed on the islands, Spanish troops surrendered. In June 1898, American troops landed in Cuba and captured Guantanamo Bay, and 17,000 U.S. Army men were ashore east of Santiago. They were poorly trained and supplied. The Army consisted of National Guard and regular Army units. Rough Riders consisted of rugged Westerners and upper-class Easterns, joined by African-American soldiers. The Rough Riders stormed up Kettle and Swan Han Hills to secure high grounds. 2 days after the Battle of Swan Han Hill, U.S. blockaded the harbor, destroyed the Spanish fleet. The fighting ended. 3,000 Americans died. Only 380 died in combat.
John Hay referred to the conflict with Spain as a splendid little war because of the ease and thoroughness of American victory. Signed by Spain and the U.S. December 1898, the Treaty of Paris officially ended the war. Spain gave up control of Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Pacific island of Guam. It also sold the Philippines to the U.S. for $20 million. The Teller Amendment, passed by Congress when it declared war on Spanish, prevented the U.S. from taking possession of Cuba. Americans designed war whether to grant the Philippines independence or take full control over the Pacific Ocean.